Okay, and we'll start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Thank you also to those of you who have your faces on the camera. I love seeing you. I appreciate it. It makes it special for me to stay connected with you. So we are going to talk about Pesach, but before we talk about Pesach, there was one word in this week's parsha that I heard or read something about. I think I read it, that I wanted to call your attention to because I had never noticed it before. So we're just going to talk about that for just a moment. If you have the stone chumash, it is on page, hold on one second. It is on page 569. We are in Parshat Tzav. Parshat Tzav, which means to command.
In which chapter, please? Because I have the Tanakh.
Yes, it's chapter 6 of Vayikra, of Leviticus, verse 3.
I got it.
Chapter
Verse 3.
6, verse 3. Okay, and it says, and this is the command, we're just going to read this here. It says, the Kohen shall don his fitted linen tunic, and he shall don linen breeches on his flesh, and he shall separate the ash of what the fire consumed of the elevation offering on the altar, and place it next to the altar. What's being talked about here is after the sacrifices, after the offerings are done and there are ashes, the ashes need to be taken out. In other words, it's like the garbage, except it's not considered garbage because it's what's left after the sacrifices. But that's not what I really wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about one word where it says, he shall don his fitted linen tunic, his fitted linen tunic. This is the first time that it's referred to as fitted. Usually it just says his linen tunic, the tunics that the Kohanim wore. So the question is, what does that mean? So the way it says it in the Hebrew, and this is going to work. So for Dorothy, it is the beginning of Pasuk Gimel 3, V'lavash hakohen mido vad. Mido comes from the word like a midah. What's a midah? If people are familiar with the word midos, a midos is a quality that we have. We're working on like a character trait. A good quality is called a midah. So mido means something that is a midah for him. But what does it mean? It really means to measure, which is why it's translated as fitted, something that is measured. So it's interesting when I was going shopping for a dress, when you say you need a different size, or they say, what size do you need? They say, Eze midah. What size? Like, they're not asking you what your character is like. Eze midah, what character trait do you have or do you need? I'm like, I need all of them. But it says, what size do you need? What is the fit? And to measure something. So what is the point of why do I need to know that his tunic had to fit him? That's kind of seems a little bit random. So one beautiful idea is the idea that when we are doing our work, and this work that the Kohen was doing was taking out the ashes or separating the ashes, which is messy work and doesn't seem like it is that significant, but it's saying that the clothing he was wearing fit him. The reason it fit him is it fit the job that he was going to do. That everything that we are given to do in our lives, whether it looks glorious and amazing to us, or whether it seems kind of, I don't know, mundane and ordinary, all of the tasks have been given to us. They fit what we need to do in this moment. It fits me. It suits me. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. When we have something that fits us and suits us, it also tells us that it's going to be appropriate for us. Now, this can also have to do with our spiritual growth. Sometimes people says it's important to take on and live a spiritual life that is fitted, is tailored to you. So people talk about this. Everything you have, pick your own color, pick your own size, pick your own toppings, pick your own whatever. It's like, what is it that fits and suits you? Where we individually are in our lives, what choices we have in front of us. What are the other considerations? Who else is in our family? What's our health? What's our energy? What's our financial circumstances? What are our interests? We need to be very careful that when we hear something that is either very inspiring, like, oh, I should do this, it's like, maybe, but let's do it in a way that suits each one of us. And on the other hand, we're not supposed to play little. We're not supposed to do something that's like, that fit me last year, but not this year. This year, I'm hopefully have grown and I'm ready for a larger size. Hopefully not a real larger size. I am ready for a larger size, not a larger size. I'm ready for a bigger, expanded self. My midos can grow because I'm in an expanded place. So the tunic should fit us. It should be proper. So just as I'm saying, I'm waxing so excited about going shopping because I never have luck shopping. This was the first dress I tried on. It fit, it looked nice. And you know how the people in the store always say, if you can find people in the store sometimes, but people always say, oh, that looks just gorgeous on you. And you know that they don't mean it. They're just trying to make a sale. But after I bought it, one of the ones is, that looked really nice on you. And I'm like, thank you, it does. So this was like, when we have something that fits us, it's not just our clothing, it's everything in our life should fit us and suit us. And when the Kohen was officiating, he wore an outfit to show that what he was doing suited him and was an appropriate task for him, lest he think, I can't believe I have to do this kind of a job. Say, no, this is the job that is appropriate for you at this time. So it's interesting today, we went out to our son and daughter-in-laws to their house to help get ready for Pesach. And it was very interesting. Everybody was one of those magic moments where everybody was in a good mood and everybody wanted to help. And the older kids were already in, because they were using bleach and all this stuff. They were all in kind of messy clothes to get dirty in while they were cleaning. So one of the next younger kids came home and he was going to he was going to be dusting the bookcase with my husband. It's not exactly a job where you have to change into different clothes, but he wanted to change into clothes that were like the clothes that everybody else was wearing to do Passover cleaning. He's like, I want to be in like Passover cleaning clothes. So it was just interesting that when we have an outfit on that says what it is I'm going to be doing and that it fits me and it suits me, our external garment that fits the activity that we're going to be doing makes a difference. So it's like a dress for success, whether it's something our task is for us, our spiritual growth is for us, that everything is, it's a midah, that it is measured for success for us. Okay, so that was just the one word that he had to wear a fitted, his fitted tunic and not somebody else's. Now,
Ellyn, I'm
yes.
sorry. What page did you say?
That was on page 569 and verse 3. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do now is kind of shift our focus over to Pesach. Many of us have been learning together for a long time. And if you haven't been learning together with me, you have been learning with other people and you've been on the planet. And so you have celebrated many Pesachs in your life. And we could do a survey. We could talk about what is the point of Pesach. And there's some things that it's not the point of, I will have to say. This isn't about freedom of religion. This isn't about God doesn't like people to be enslaved. It has nothing to do with that. It is a celebration of the redemption of the Jewish people from Egypt. It is also a celebration of what could have been the redemption of the Egyptian people from Egypt as well, except that didn't go as planned. So we talk about that, and we have everything in Passover. I could ask each one of you, you would know the matzah, the bread of our freedom, but it's also the matzah that they were so poor as slaves, they ate that. We've talked about maror. We talked about the sandwich of life last week, about the matzah and maror together, of the redemption as well as the pain and pleasure coming together in our lives. We talked about the 4 cups of wine and its connection to women and the enthusiasm that women bring to Jewish life throughout history. So we could talk about all of these things, the 4 children, the charosas, all of these things, the salt water, the leaning. All of these things have so much that have been said and written and discussed. And then at the end of the day, the question is, what was the point of the whole thing? What is the point of Pesach? What is the point of the Exodus from Egypt? So many of you know that the Jewish calendar has two beginnings. One is in Nisan, that's how we count all the months. In the Torah, if Rosh Hashanah, for example, is in the 7th month of the Jewish year, Tishrei is the 7th month, Nisan is the 1st month. But we have Rosh Hashanah, we call that the new year, but Nisan is also a new year. So we say that there were two beginnings, the beginning of creation in Tishrei and the beginning of the Jewish people in Nisan. So we could say, oh, it's the creation of the Jewish people, and that would also be right. All those things are right. And yet they are, as big as they are, they're too small of a definition. So what I want to share today comes from Rebbetzin Esther Wien, who shares the thoughts of her grandfather, Rav Schwab of blessed memory, who's related to our Rabbi Schwab in Denver. I still can say our because I'm still a Denverite. Okay, so Rav Schwab. So what I want to do is share what she talks about because it kind of opens your mind in a different way. And so we're going to take it deeper than what we have looked at before. Now, I have to tell you, I'm not sure any of these ideas are ones you can share at your Seder, honestly, because unless people have had a lot of wine and then they can she even compared it to people who will use psychedelic drugs to reach a state that we have the potential to reach at Pesach if we really were paying attention. So let's talk about what is Pesach really all about. And for that, we need to go back to the Garden of Eden. Go back to the Garden of Eden. So now we're going to take a tour and I'm going to give you chapters and verses. Honestly, we're going to be just looking at a few words here and there. So if we are moving too fast, I'm just going to actually offer, don't worry about it, because you don't necessarily have to see it inside. So I'll give you the page numbers and the chapter and verses, and then I think it'll be easier just to follow it because we have about 7 or 8 to look at together. So we're going to start with the creation of Chava. Now, why are we doing that? So we're talking about it because the creation of Adam and Chava and the creation of the Jewish people as a nation are for the same purpose. But we have to understand what that purpose is. So now turn all the way back to page 13 in the Chumash, which is chapter 2, verse 15. Chapter 2, verse 15. And we see that the purpose when humanity was created, chapter 2, verse 15 is on page 13. And we're going to look at this. And verse 15 says, Hashem, God, took the man and placed him in the Garden of Eden. And here's the clincher for us: to work it and to guard it. Okay, to work it and to guard it. And that the word for that is, you can look in verse 13, what he's supposed to do is, hold on one second, I'm going to find it in the Hebrew. Where am I? Oh, 15, I'm sorry, I was looking the wrong one. La'avda, from the word eved, or avadim chayinu, we were slaves, and eved is a servant. Le'avda, to work it, u'lashamra, and to guard it. So the question has to be, what was the work and what was the guarding in the Garden of Eden? There was no work to do. There was no work to do. They ate plants, they ate fruit from fruit trees, which just grew and you went out and you picked it and you ate it. That was it. Can you imagine what your life would be like if that was all you did? Just go out and eat, pick your food, eat it, that's it. And there was nothing to protect it from because the animals were all tame. They were no threat to a human being. So what was there to guard? So if you have the Chumash, you can see in the commentary that it says what the work was. Kind of halfway through, It says Adam's work in the garden was to study Torah and the performance of positive mitzvot, and to guard it by refraining from forbidden activities. So what was the purpose of the creation of humanity? To study Torah and to perform positive mitzvot, and to guard it by refraining from forbidden activities. Now, as we know, Adam wasn't Jewish, as we understand what Jewish means, because that was the purpose of creation and the purpose of humanity, was to study Torah and to perform positive mitzvot and to refrain from doing things that are prohibited. The question is, why? What does that even mean? What does it mean to study Torah? It's like, we didn't have the Torah then. The Torah comes in parsha Yitro. So what are we talking about? We need to understand what God had in mind with the creation of humanity and what the purpose was. The purpose was, and still is, that humanity recognized that we are part of Hashem's, God's reality, that we are not partners, we're here and God's here, or God's here and we're here. We are within God's reality, and we want to be able to function and manifest what knowing that means. I'll give you an example in the physical world. We know that there are physical laws of existence, right? There's gravity. There are, I'll just say mathematically, this was the example that Esther Wien gave. 2 + 2 = 4. There's no way around that. How do we demonstrate that we know that to be true? Like, well, we build bridges, we make recipes, we cut cloth, we function in our lives with the recognition that that is true. Even if I said that 2 + 2 = 3.9999, I might as well say that 2 + 2 = 3 or 8, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Ask an astronaut if they're planning a launch of a spacecraft and say, oh, plus or minus, whatever, let's just launch you out there and I'm sure you'll be fine. It's like, it is precise, and there are laws that govern the physical reality. And that's something that we know and we study to understand. That's what it means. I'm going to call this the Torah of the physical world, to understand the physical laws and how the world works. It's fascinating. Steve and I went in, our doctor wanted to have baseline blood work done for us, which was great. First of all, it's just phenomenal that they can take just like a little bit of blood and can do 8,000 tests on that. And then they come back and you get this printout. I didn't even know what half the things even meant. And then it shows you a chart. You're this here, you're you're kind of on the extreme here, you're kind of low here. I'm like, I don't even know what these things are. Do I have an option to say, you know what? I don't know what those things are. I don't understand it. So I don't really have to follow that. It's like, no, my cholesterol, my sugar, my triglycerides, all these things are in balance. And it's like the LDL with the HDL, and this is the ratio, and this has to be like this, and your blood pressure, all of these things are so finely calibrated. And so we study the Torah of the physical world, and then a person who then guards it refrains from doing things that try to work against it, to work against what the laws are. So you could say a person could think that they could, I'm not so big on gravity. I think it's just kind of, punitive, that, what goes up must come down. So I'm not going for that. It's like, I'm going to jump off a roof and we'll see. I'm sure I'll be able to fly. Now, it was me when I was 5, but that's not a thinking person. So a person who studies the Torah of the physical world in all of its grandeur and glory and precision, and then acts in concert with it and manifests what do those laws look like when somebody is living with them, then you see beautiful architecture, you see a gifted surgeon, you see a talented artist, you see something beautifully designed, you see an incredible chemist, you see what it looks like manifested. So does that help just in the understanding of what we're talking about when you say to learn something and then to live in concert with it, that the laws and the living go hand in hand? So that's what Adam and Chava were supposed to do in the spiritual realm as well in the Garden of Eden. What are the laws of life and living? In relationships, how does it look? How are people supposed to behave with one another? What are the laws of relationship of a person with oneself, with the infinite creator of the world? I study that. That's what Torah study is how does that all work? And that's why they're called laws. They're not called laws because somebody's trying to get you to do things that you don't want to do. They are the fabric, the structure of creation. And when we understand them, the mitzvot are a manifestation of that, the same as an architect is going to build a building that follows whatever it's called. I don't know, because I'm not an architect. Like, I have to say, some of the buildings you see here in Israel, I'm not sure what school of architecture some of these people went to. You see somebody adds on I don't know, an addition to their apartment. It looks like it is barely hanging on there. I'm like, that looks a little, and then people are like, oh, I don't want to get a permit. It's like, you don't want a permit because you just want to do what you want to do. So you can do what you want to do, but in the end, it's going to collapse. God forbid it should not collapse, it should stay. But you don't get to really, you can not live in concert with them, but you don't really get to undo them. We don't have a choice in that matter. So the Jewish people, and originally Adam and Chava, were supposed to be the ones who manifested the reality of God in the physical world, period. And they had one prohibition, which was do not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which creates a mixture and confusion about that reality. Now you could say, why did God put it in there if he didn't want them to do it? It's like, because we are created in the image of God and we need to be able to choose, even to our detriment. We must be able to choose to do the wrong thing and then face the consequences. So when Adam and Chava did that, they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and the words that were used for them being kicked out of this ideal place because they were not living in the way that God wanted them to live. Let's take a look at the words that are used for them having to leave the Garden of Eden. If you look on page 19, which is chapter 3, verse 23. Chapter 3, verse 23, it says, so Hashem, God, banished him from the Garden of Eden. And the word in Hebrew is vaishalchehu, from the word lishloach, like shalach manas, to send out. Okay, that's the word that is used. He was banished, he was sent out. But he's not just sent out. There's another word in verse 39 and that's not right. Verse 24, I apologize. And it says, verse 24, and having driven out the man, he's stationed at the east of the Garden of Eden, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Verse 24, it says, Vigarish. That word vigarish, which means to drive out. So there's two words. One is the lishloach and vigarish. He was kicked out and kicked out. Those words, and now he's going to be in what's really we're going to call the first exile. The first exile into a place where you're going to have to figure out how to come back to the garden. And what does God do to preserve and protect and to show the way back? It says that he stations at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubim, the kruvim, and the flame of the ever-turning sword to guard the way to the tree of life, not to prevent, but to guard, to show how to get back. How is humanity supposed to get back? Through the path of the kruvim, of the cherubs, and through the path of the ever-turning sword. Now that's, the kruvim, we're already kind of used to that because they appear in the Mishkan as angels. They were over the ark, the cherubs. We're used to that as a pattern. I did one of my videos at the Machon HaMikdash, the Temple Institute, that showed the fabrics with the kruvim, the cherubs. But this ever-turning flaming sword, this ever-turning sword, and that has a flame, says, what is that? What does that mean? Does anybody have any idea or have heard anything about what is the flame of the ever-turning sword? It sounds like, I have to say, it sounds like the, what's it called? The As the World Turns, or something just reminds me of that. That's when I think of it, as the world turns. But what's that ever-turning sword? Does anybody have any idea what that might mean? Etta.
I have no idea, but this is just thrown out in a bad way. Like the Ner Tamid, the ever-present flame that you have in synagogues and.
Okay, good. Okay, that's great. That's okay. You're on to something. Anybody else have anything else that comes to mind from that? Of anything else about this, the flame of the ever-turning sword? Okay. All right, so let's talk about this. If you think of some more things, let me know. So this flame, it says this flame is like a glint. The glint from this ever-turning sword says, first of all, this turning, and it's always there. So just like you said, Etta, about the Ner Tamid, it's always there. If God was trying to keep Adam and Chava away from the tree of life, which is really the Torah, the tree of life, like we say, Eitz Chaim Hi, it is a tree of life to those who grab hold of it. If God didn't want us to get the tree of life, he would have hidden it, not say, it's over here, here are the kruvim, and here's the ever-turning flaming sword, over here, over here. You would hide it. It was not to hide it. It was to get us back, but we would have to put in the effort. And the effort is through kruvim, through the cherubs, and through this ever-turning sword. So we have the ever-turning that's always there. We have the idea that there's a glint, there's a flame. It says, what is this? It says that the kruvim represent the ability of the human mind to have a spiritual image and put it into concrete form. A spiritual image and put it into concrete form, which is why we talk about the kruvim, the cherubs. Okay, they represent the love between God and Jewish people, between one Jew and another Jew, between humanity. We have these things, it's a metaphor. And now we can have something, nobody says, oh, there's a statue. It's like, no, this represents a spiritual idea in physical form. So when human beings are able to use their minds to think about a spiritual idea and translate it into human action, that's called kruvim. I have an idea about, we have it, I'll just say this, and this isn't really it. If you see a heart, the shape of a heart, does everybody not know what that means? Everybody knows what that means, right? It's an abstract idea. It's like, I know what that means. If somebody sends me a note and they put a heart on it, I don't say, boy, I wonder what they think of me. I'm like, that's a sign of like appreciation, love, kindness. I care for you. Can't wait to see you. That's what that means. It's like, well, no, it's just a shape with two things like on the side. It's like, no, it's abstract. Okay, and even a 3-year-old can figure that out. It's like, all my little granddaughters, they always, what shape should I draw? What's the first thing they always say? A heart. Okay, I'll draw me a heart. Okay, so we understand that. It says kruvim is the ability to have an idea in my mind and to do something to make a concrete expression of it. It says that's what our goal is that we have the idea of God exists in the world, but it can't just stay in our heads. It can't even just stay in our hearts. It has to be expressed in concrete actions. We call those actions mitzvot. The ever-turning sword, it says that the ever-turning sword is really very much like my As the World Turns. What was that soap opera about? As the world turns, and today this person is doing this, this person is doing that. It's like, yep, that's as the world turns. As the world turns, we get glints, we get a flame that lights up like a flash of lightning that lights up the dark sky. There's like, oh, wow, now I see something. This situation happened, but now I have clarity for a moment, and I can redirect, I can recalibrate my approach, I can just go in a slightly different direction. Our life is going to be not a full expression of God's presence, because that would overwhelm us. It's going to be glints. It's going to be the flame of the ever-turning sword, that as we go through the vicissitudes of life, and as we go through things, we're going to have flashes of an epiphany and awareness of God's reality. This is what will help us get back. And then when we have it, we go into proving mode. We go into like, oh, I get it. And now I'm going to do something to express what my flash of insight was all about. So this is the way back to the tree of life. This is the way back to the Garden of Eden. So you may want to ask, and what does this have to do with Pesach? What does this have to do with Pesach? We're going to see that the exodus from Egypt was the undoing of the banishment from the Garden of Eden. It's the undoing of the banishment, because the freedom from the exodus from Egypt represents, and it is, the exile. That is the exile. And the exile has been painful. To be distanced from God, to be distanced from that reality, to be able to manifest it, we have not been able to do the avodah. We have not been able to do the service of Hashem. We have been forced to corrupt it into the service of Pharaoh, because every human being serves somebody. Nobody gets out of servitude. We are designed to serve. I can serve myself. I can serve another person. I can serve a worthy cause. I can serve an unworthy cause, but we're going to serve something. And so the problem with exile is that we then are forced to serve the wrong thing. And it brings us groans, and it brings us pain, and it brings us suffering. And all of our efforts are for naught. Those efforts for naught are symbolized by the work that the Jews did in Egypt, the physical work that they did, that they were manifesting. A house of bondage is where you're serving the wrong thing, but you're working darn hard at it. It's like, but I'm working. We've talked about this just as an aside. Someone says, I just want my children to be happy. It's like, and if they wanted to sit in the backyard and make mud pies and they said they were happy, would you be happy with that kind of happiness? And the answer better be no. It's like, that's a false God. That is false service. So said the Jewish people that they built, they were commanded to build, and what they built sunk into the ground. They didn't even have the pleasure of building something for the enemy. All their efforts were for naught. It says that's what happens when we're serving the wrong thing. We don't always get to see that it's for naught, but it is. That's the house of bondage. So Pesach undoes. Pesach undoes the exile, and it's going to use language, and this is a la David Foreman, except he's not the one who mentioned it in this case. It was Rebbetzin Wien. Is we're going to look at how the Jews were sent out of Egypt. Okay, how were they sent out of Egypt? So let's take a look at that. If we want to go to page 359, this is going to be in Shemot, in Exodus 359, and hold on a second, I'll give you the chapter. 359 is chapter 12 of Exodus, and we're going to be looking at verse 33 and verse 39. In verse 33, this is when the Jewish people, after the 10th plague, they're in Egypt, and the Egyptians are going to send the Jewish people out, and the words that are going to be used in verse 33, Egypt imposed itself strongly upon the people to hasten to send them out. And in the Hebrew, it is in verse 33, which is Lamed Gimel, and it says, Lishalcha. Now, this is just a different form of like lishloach, which is to send. So God sent out Adam and Chava. The Egyptians are sending out of exile to freedom to the Jewish people. So they're using that word. So that's just like, okay, that's not, okay, maybe that's just a coincidence. But another word is used as well. And the other word that is used is in verse 24. I'm sorry, in verse 39. Verse 39, and it says, this is what we're all familiar with. They baked the dough that they took out of Egypt into unleavened cakes, for they could not be leavened, for they were driven from Egypt, for they could not delay. And the word for they were driven is lametet, and it says right there, ki gor shu, that same root, gimel resh shin. So just as God had used the word lishloach and the gimel resh shin to kick them out and send them out and banish them from Eden, now we have the Egyptians, which is basically God forcing the Egyptians to come to this point to say, you are leaving this exile, you're going back to the garden. You're going back to the Garden of Eden. And what was Adam and Chava's, what were they supposed to be doing in the Garden of Eden? They were supposed to be learning Torah and performing mitzvot. So now that we see that the same language is you're being kicked out of the bondage and I'm sending you back to the garden. I'm bringing you back to the garden where you will serve me, Hashem says, because what's the word? When Moshe is first given the instruction to go to Egypt to start the whole liberation process, God tells Moshe that that the purpose is going to be that I will take you out so that you will come and serve me. And where is that? On page 407. No, that's not right. Page 3, I take that back. Page 303, I apologize. 303. This is when God is first speaking to Moshe at the burning bush. Page 303. And that is, I'll give you the chapter. It's verse 12, chapter 3. Page 303, the bottom of the page, verse 12. And he said, for I shall be with you, and this is your sign that I have sent you. Next page, page 305. When you take the people out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain. And the word there, of course, is going to be there, that it is, ta'avdu, from the word avodah, you will serve me. This is the avodah, la'avod, to work that was supposed to have happened in the Garden of Eden, which is why it's not like, oh, I wonder if the Jewish people know what's going to be happening. Was it a surprise when they left Egypt that they end up at Mount Sinai? It's like, no, that's where the whole thing started. Yes, Dorothy.
I'm sorry, are we in Shemot? What are we in?
Yes, we are in Shemot. We are in Exodus.
In
chapter 3. Chapter 3, the end, chapter 3, end of verse 12, and it says, ta'avdun, and you will serve me.
Okay, now I see it.
Al-Hahar Hazeh, this mountain you will come and serve me on. So this is the end game. This is why Pesach is connected to Shavuot. Okay, Pesach, the whole point of Pesach is only to get to Shavuot, is only to get to the Torah and get those mitzvot, the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life that was taken away from us in the Garden of Eden. And now we're going to be back to the Garden of Eden. And that was the whole point. And the point of being there is we, the Jewish people, who said, we want to be the ones in this relationship, to be the ones who manifest what does it look like in the physical world when somebody is manifesting completely the relationship, the ideal relationship between a person and themselves, the person and God, and the person and other people. So now I'll tell you, and some of you maybe have had doctors or other people, healthcare professionals who tell you what you should be doing, and they themselves are clearly not doing it. And you're like, okay, I'm looking better than you, but okay, we'll go with what you're telling me. So it's not a matter of not knowing, it's a matter of not manifesting. So my friend Darlene and I, last Shabbos, we were together and we were walking with a woman who is very beautiful, very slender, like 70 years old. She looks like she's like 45. I'm like, you're 70. And I said, you look amazing. She said, well, it's good advertisement for what I do. She's a weight loss coach. Now, a weight loss coach who is obese is like not going to be so successful. It's like, I'm not going to you. What do you know? So the Jewish people are God's spiritual coaches. We're the ones who are supposed to walk the talk, who look like what that ideal, what that relationship looks like when somebody is aware of God's reality, knows we're part of God's picture here, and we are manifesting the joy and happiness and the celebration of how great it is to live like that. And that's the light unto the nations, okay? I'm all for Israel as a startup nation, and we've brought medical things and all these things. That's all wonderful and amazing, and I love to hear everything. It's not the point. The point is we're supposed to manifest how do people behave who are created in the image of God, who manifest the laws of human reality in conjunction with divine reality. That's what we're looking to see. Pesach is where we get our clarity and our dose, which is why, did you notice how many things there are to do for Pesach? It's the holiday. There's so much to do. Yeah, clean your house, get rid of hummus, go buy your Pesach things, get rid of, go buy all new ingredients, turn your house upside down, because we're going to create a reality where it shows that I'm so happy to be back in the Garden of Eden. I'm back in the garden where I see God's existence crystal clear. So when we say that each of us should see ourselves as if we were freed from Egypt, I'm sorry, that's pretty hard to do. I can't really do that. But when I understand to be freed from Egypt means to be freed from the bondage of incorrect thinking and of serving the wrong, anything else that is other than God's reality, then I can celebrate that. That is the bondage that I thank God every day, because every day we say, thank you, God, blessed are you, God, who has not made me a slave to false reality. I have clarity. Now, hanging on to this clarity is really hard, because going back to our ever-turning sword, our life is so filled with confusion and lack of clarity that we get glints every once in a while of some sort of epiphany, and then to hang on to it and turn that into something I can manifest in my life becomes a real challenge. But we grab onto it on the Seder night. And that's what our Seder is supposed to be. It's a celebration that we were back in the garden. The Jewish people says that that's what we reached. And when we received the Torah, it says we were back in the Garden of Eden until the golden calf, which just shows us that even under all of these fabulous circumstances, it's not easy to do. So we don't beat ourselves up over the fact that we keep making mistakes in all of this, but we need to know how beneficial having a 7 or 8 day period of Pesach is to recalibrate our thinking and to say, I know that there is nothing other than God. God is the only reality. When you say to somebody like, oh, I serve God, people think like, are you a rabbi? Are you live in a convent? Like, what does that mean to serve God? It's the serving God means, because that's what God said, I'm bringing you back here to, so you will serve me. It's not that I'm going to be a Kohen and I'm not offering sacrifices. That's not my job. Serving God means that in all of my daily activities and daily decisions, I'm guided by the framework that God has set out for us to understand. The same way, if I was a chemist, you do not want me as your chemist. I didn't really understand heat so well. And if I told you my chemistry story, first day of chemistry in high school, we were introduced to the Bunsen burner, and we had little glass pipettes. So we were supposed to melt the ends of them with our lab partner. I'm like, oh, I can do that. That's easy, right? I've never touched any of this stuff before. So I do one end, then I turn around to do the second end. And next thing I know, there's like red liquid dripping onto the lab table. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like bleeding. So I thought like I had burned myself, and it was so burned that I didn't even realize what happened. I didn't burn myself. I melted my red shirt. So it was a polyester shirt. Touched it, and so drops of blood, well, not drops of melted polyester were dropping on the table. So, and then it hardened into hard plastic. It's like, I learned something about polyester. You can't put heat on that. Okay, so do you ever do that? Just even shrink something in the dryer? Because there are directions on the fabric that say how to treat it. And you say, well, I really want to do it on high. It's like, well, you can, but you'll end up with a mess. Or you can put a colored garment in with a white garment and you'll end up with like pink underwear. You can do all of those things, but why? So it's one thing to do it as a mistake, is another thing to be like, I don't want to do it because I don't want to. The mitzvot and the structure we've been given are to help us understand the spiritual framework that interacts perfectly with the physical world, the directions, the design for living our life in the most beneficial way. We're running across this being in Israel, where the directions to everything are in Hebrew. And then you use the Google Translate lens, and it translates it into some really bizarre English, and then you're still trying to figure out what it's telling you. So like, well, I'll just try it. I'll just plug it in and see what happens. So you could just, I'll just plug it in and see what happens. You could live that kind of a life, and you might end up with some unfortunate surprises. So to study the Torah means to study the reality of the world as God has designed it for our benefit, and to act in concert and synchronized with it. Sounds simple, but it's not easy, because at the same time, we have been designed to want to do things our own way, because each of us is a little Pharaoh. And Pharaoh was like, I don't know, God, I created myself and I created the river. So now none of us would be as foolish enough to say that, but we come pretty close. I want to do it my way. It's like, okay, you can do that, but there will be a consequence. And it's not a punishment. It's the same consequence of, I want to dip my pipette the way I want to do it and melt my shirt. So we can do it, but it's not going to work. So this is the idea of Pesach, is where we get rid of the chametz. What's the chametz? It looks almost like matzah. It almost looks like matzah. If you look at the spelling of it, matzah is spelled mem tzadi hey. Chametz is spelled chet mem tzadi. So two of the three letters are the same, mem and tzadi. The chet and the hey, if anyone's ever tried to learn how to read Hebrew or even read some Hebrew signs, chet and hey look really, really similar. But that's the same thing as saying that 2 + 2 equals 3.99999. It's like, no, it doesn't. So chametz is where getting rid of that is getting rid of the idea that I can say it's 3.999 and I don't have to say it's 4. So it's like these little things, and they're little crumbs, and they're little things that have infiltrated and snuck into the crevices of our mind, just as the crumbs have snuck into the crevices of our home. It's like, how did that get there? You know, like, how did the noodles get under the refrigerator? I have no idea. I never put a noodle in the refrigerator, but there it is. So this is like this chametz, and why someone has to search for it is because it looks like it should be fine, except that it's not. And during Pesach, we want to have crystal clear separation between the two, so that we can understand exactly where our thoughts are. In searching for chametz, which everyone's going to be doing, the bedikat chametz, the bedikah is going to be done, and it's done in the evening, at night, and it's done with a candle. Some people do use a flashlight, whatever. You can ask your spiritual guide on that, of what to do. But the idea is looking carefully and exploring all of the hidden places. You could say, if you really want to find it, can I say that you should do it during the day and turn on the lights? So like, how strange is that if I say it's really important to search? So turn off the lights and use a candle. Like, that's weird. That's just weird. So, but if we're saying that this is a metaphor, I mean, it's an actual reality, but it's also a metaphor that I'm searching the dark recesses of my mind. That's what it really is I'm looking in the places of darkness and trying to find the things that are hiding there and lurking there that are taking me off track. And then I want to get rid of them. And when we get rid of chametz, we don't just say, okay, it's in the trash.
You've frozen.
Yes, I'm sorry, I see that. Okay, sorry. Am I back now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. It says my internet connection is unstable. I'm sorry. Okay, we're almost actually completed here. So this chametz that we're trying to look for and search out, we want to make it go away, and we see how much it sticks to us. If I have to burn it, and I have to sell it, and I have to give it away, and I have to nullify it, that's telling me something. It's telling me that it's sticking to me like glue. It's sticking to you like those little styrofoam things that they pack packages, and you try to get them into the trash, and they just keep jumping from one part of your clothing to the next. You can't get rid of them. Okay, this stuff sticks to us because it's part of our human nature to want to hang on to it. So I have to make an extra effort to have this clarity. So if we can use this time of these final days getting ready for Pesach and searching for chametz and looking for them in all of the dark places as we explore our homes, is to use it again. It's wonderful to have a clean house. I'm all for having a clean house, but to also at the same time use it for the exploration of our thoughts and our beliefs, and to work on substituting and putting in matzah instead of chametz. That we want to make that differentiation, to know that we're talking about a time where Hashem has given us a huge gift to take us back to the garden just for a week, at least for the night of the Seder, to take us back there to reconnect. And it's a little bit like going, when people go to, I've never done this, but I think it'd be really fun. I think it would be fun to go to like one of its health spas, where they only have healthy food for you. They don't have a plate of chips and ice cream out there. They only have whatever, celery, I don't know, whatever it is that they have there that's healthy for you. And they have all healthy activities. And you can have like a week or a few days where you just kind of recalibrate and remind yourself what health looks like and what it feels like. And then you have to go home. And the answer is like, and then what? But at least you have this time to check in and say like, oh, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. And then I'll spend the rest of the year trying to adjust. Pesach gives us this 1 week retreat where we are in a place that has been physically and spiritually and emotionally, theologically, intellectually clarified, so that we can reposition ourselves and say, I'm going back to the garden for a week, which is why Pesach is said that in the future, it will be also the future redemption is based on Pesach. And that is when all of humanity, not just the Jewish people, that all of humanity will be returned to the place that we were at in the Garden of Eden, because ultimately that is our goal, all of humanity to operate with the awareness of God's reality, and the decisions are take that into consideration, we act in concert with it. So we know that, just I'm thinking about like in the environment, we know what happens with pollution, and for how many decades and centuries People figured if they put it in the river and it just washed down the stream, it didn't exist. And now all of these things come back to bite us, every single one of them. And we can see socially, environmentally, politically, all of these things, there's only so long that we can make the wrong decisions. And then it comes back to bite us. So at Pesach, we get a time to have the clarity of what am I even aiming for? I'm aiming for in the spiritual world to be on track and to be operating in the framework that is in concert with what God intended for us, for the Jewish people, and for all of humanity. That's why the birth of the Jewish people, the creation, is a mirror of exactly what happened in the Garden of Eden and the creation of humanity to begin with. So there's the creation of humanity in the garden, the Jewish people at the Exodus, and I'll put the Exodus and the Torah. And then in the end, like the end of the story is that all of humanity goes back to the garden, led by you all. You're looking at yourselves. We're the ones who are supposed to be leading everybody back. So when we get it clear ourselves, we'll be able to clarify for others as well. So God willing, your own individual Pesachs, your Seders, the people who you will gather with, even if you don't have a chance to have a big conversation about this, hopefully it will just illuminate your face, and just by the emotion and the attitude and literally the spirit that you bring to the Seders you make or the Seders you attend, this will come through, and hopefully the life that we live during those 7 days, and even more so the 49 days between Pesach and when we go to Mount Sinai and receive the Torah and receive those mitzvahs that we should have had, could have had in the Garden of Eden, that we will embrace those and take them to heart. So I want to wish everybody, it's the only holiday that we say Chag Kasher V'Sameach. We don't just say Chag Sameach, happy holiday. We say Chag Kasher V'Sameach. It should be a happy, joyful, and kosher holiday. And kosher means fit. It should fit you to a T. It should be fit for proper use. Just like the fitted tunic, your Pesach should fit you and suit who you are meant to be in this world. The world is waiting for the righteous Jewish women. We've already been told that it's going to be in the merit of righteous Jewish women. And those Jewish women are not some other women out there. That's not them. It's us. It's we are them. We are the righteous Jewish women. So we will take up the gauntlet and prepare and hopefully manifest a beautiful
Onwards and
connection
upwards.
to ourselves. Onwards and upwards, exactly.
Onwards and upwards.
Have a wonderful, wonderful Pesach.
Thank
It's great to thank you for sharing this with me. I really appreciate it. And I hope each one of you enjoys wherever
Thank
you
you.
are.
Ellen. It was wonderful. Thank you.
I'll be in touch with you.
Thank
Let
you,
know what's
Ellen.
happening.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck to Audrey with the birth. When is she
Thank
due?
you. The day after Pesach is over, God willing.
Or before? Oh,
Mazel
no,
tov.
Hopefully not before, because we won't be
No,
there.
no, no,
So,
it's a C-section, right. What's the date?
whatever the day is after Pesach, I don't even know, like the 14th or 15th of April.
Right.
Tax day. Her deduction. will
Yeah,
hopefully
that's it. Oh, yeah, Friday the 14th. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I'll be praying. Everything
Thank
goes
you.
smoothly. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
So you're
thank you.
leaving soon. You're leaving soon back to the States.
The day after Pesach is over in Israel.
Got it. That's when you're leaving.
Yes, we'll
To
get
go
there
help.
the night before, God willing, she has the baby. So just so you know, her kids don't know that, I mean, they know she's pregnant, but they don't know that she's scheduled that day. So if you happen to see anything or see them or post anything, don't say anything. So they don't.
I don't use Facebook, so no problem.
Smart. Okay.
And I don't.
Hag
Right.
Sameach.
Hag
But thank you
Sameach.
so much.
Well, feel good, enjoy, and thank you for joining me.
You
Thank
enjoy.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Kol tov.
Bye.
Chag sameach. Chag
Hag
kasher
Sameach.
Yeah.
Kasher v'sameach.
v'sameach.
Everybody. Thank you, Ellen.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Be
B'tzeh
well.
koach.
Baruch Ti. Thank you.
So this is the last class before whenever you start again.
Right, and I just don't know when that will be because I don't
know
know
that.
where we'll be, but yes, it is.
Of course, but this is so great. I'm happy I made it.
Yes,
Sorry, I was
because-
a little late.
Because God willing, next Wednesday night, you'll be sitting at a Seder, as will I.
Thank
I
you.
do believe. Thank you, Marcia. You're welcome.
Have wonderful Seders, and you'll do it with Benjamin, I imagine.
Yes, we're doing it with Benjamin and Dahlia and the kids, and
Yeah.
they're so prepared and they're so excited, and it's
Wonderful,
really
yeah.
it's
They're
really
ready to prepare. And there's room for you to stay there. You have a solution, so that's great.
yeah. We're not staying with them. We're staying with friends of theirs who are going to be out of town for Pesach. So
Fantastic.
we get to
In the
stay
same
at them.
shalavim, the same shalavim.
Yeah. So just
That's
right
really, really blessed.
there, really
That's
nice.
really special.
So
That's
we're
fantastic.
we're so excited.
Looking
So,
forward.
Yeah.
So lots of love, and thank you for inspiring us. Sorry,
Thank
I
you
was a
for
little late. I
sharing
was
it
in a-
with me. Thank
And
you.
I was having my haircut until
It looks
Wednesday.
beautiful.
Did you suggest wait? Oh, thank you. And color too. So we are not supposed to cut hair. I'm not. I know that after Shavuot, but you also allow it after Tu B'Shvat. From Tu
I think you
B'Shvat
mean-
on. Not Tu B'Shvat.
Lag
Lag
BaOmer.
BaOmer.
Yes.
Yeah, I meant that. I didn't.
Yeah, from-
I'm not sleeping enough. And Lag
Yes.
BaOmer is what date? Do you know by any chance? I'll look it up.
I don't know the date, but it's the 33rd day of the Omer. So whatever that is, it's on your calendar for sure. Because it's a holiday.
33rd day, right? Of the
Yeah, it's on your
Omer. So
it's on your
33
it's on your
days.
Jewish calendar.
Absolutely, I'll go look, and that's okay. Doing it from that day.
From that
Cutting
day
hair?
on. Yep.
Okay. No need to. I was waiting till after Shavuot, and I look like a hippie. So that's
No.
good to know. So
Yeah,
lots of
no.
love to the whole family, please. Okay?
Thank you. And to
Take
you too.
care.
Joy. Take good
תודה
care.
רבה. שיקות.
Bye.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye bye. You too.